What would you do if your world suddenly turned upside down, leaving you battered, alone, and unsure if anyone is waiting for you? Quang faced this nightmare when ruthless thieves left him for dead by the roadside, stripped of everything. Saved by a kind stranger, he now fights through pain and injury, using daily remedies to heal his wounded leg, longing to reunite with his mother and Linda. Will love and hope survive the test of time and distance? Join us as we follow Quang's incredible journey of survival, courage, and unwavering hope, and don't forget to subscribe for the full story. Quang was still alive, though barely. The night had been a nightmare etched into his memory with unbearable clarity. He had been ambushed by a group of ruthless thieves while traveling alone, and they had taken everything he owned, the small bag slung over his shoulder, his wallet, even the shoes on his feet. Stripped of all his belongings and left in a state of near unconsciousness, he had been thrown unceremoniously onto the cold, hard ground by the side of the road. The darkness around him felt suffocating, broken only by the occasional flicker of passing headlights in the distance. Pain radiated from his body, sharp and relentless, and his breath came in shallow, ragged gasps. Every thought was clouded by confusion and fear, yet somewhere deep within, a fragile spark of hope refused to die. Hours passed like an eternity. Quang's mind drifted in and out of consciousness, haunted by flashes of the night's horror and the faces of those who had abandoned him. The cold seeped into his bones, making him shiver uncontrollably, and his vision blurred as he tried to focus on anything familiar, anything that might anchor him to life. His fingers, numb and trembling, reached out instinctively for something solid, anything that could offer a semblance of safety. But the road was desolate, and the only sounds were the distant hum of a faraway car engine and the restless rustle of leaves in the wind. It was in this desperate limbo between life and despair that Quang began to feel the terrifying possibility of being forgotten, left to fade into the night, unnoticed and uncared for. Then, unexpectedly, salvation appeared in the form of a stranger. A kind-hearted villager, who had been returning home after tending to his small plot of land, noticed a figure lying motionless on the roadside. At first, he thought it might be a drunkard or someone who had passed out, but as he approached, the sight of Quang's battered and bruised body sent a jolt of alarm through him. Without hesitation, the man lifted Quang into his arms, his hands firm yet gentle, and carried him to the safety of his modest home. The warmth of a fire and the soft light of a lamp offered a stark contrast to the cruel darkness outside, and for the first time since the attack, Quang felt a flicker of relief. Inside the small house, every corner spoke of simplicity and care. The villager tended to Quang with meticulous attention, gently cleaning the dirt and blood from his wounds and carefully wrapping his battered body to provide comfort. There was no judgment, no questions, only a quiet determination to save a stranger's life. As Quang lay on a straw mat, feeling the steady rhythm of a heart that cared enough to nurture him, he was overcome with gratitude and a sense of fragile security. For the first time that night, he dared to let himself hope that he might survive. He could feel the pain in his limbs, the stiffness of his muscles, and the deep, gnawing ache in his legs, but he also felt the presence of compassion. A tether to life that kept him from succumbing to despair. In that humble house, Quang's story of tragedy and fear began to shift towards survival and care. He was no longer abandoned on the roadside, he was seen, tended to, and protected. Every small gesture from his rescuer, whether it was a warm bowl of soup or the careful adjustment of a pillow under his head, reminded him that he had not been forgotten, that somewhere in this world, kindness still existed. And so, as exhaustion pulled him into an uneasy sleep, Quang's thoughts turned to the possibility of recovery, to the hope that someday he would rise again, stronger, and find his way back to those he loved. Quang's days in the villager's home became a quiet rhythm of pain, patience, and hope. The wounds on his body were slowly healing, but his leg injury remained severe, a constant reminder of how close he had come to losing everything. Each morning, he would gingerly sit on the edge of the straw mat, his hands trembling slightly as he prepared the makeshift remedy he had learned to rely on, freshly crushed leaves of medicinal herbs, wrapped carefully in clean cloth, ready to be pressed against his swollen, bruised leg. The pain shot through him with every touch, sharp enough to make him bite back a groan, but Quang welcomed it as a sign that his body was still alive, still capable of fighting. Day by day, he tended to his injury, washing it, cleaning it, and wrapping it with patience that sometimes felt endless. In those moments, the world outside ceased to exist, and all that mattered was the fragile hope that one day, his legs would carry him home. His mind wandered frequently to his mother, whose unwavering love had always been his anchor. He imagined the instant she would see him again, the shock in her eyes turning into tears of relief, her arms wrapping around him as though she would never let go. Just the thought of her joy filled Quang with warmth that countered the chill of his surroundings. He could almost hear her voice, trembling and joyful, whispering his name and asking if he was truly safe. The longing to feel that embrace again became his secret fuel, a hidden strength that drove him to endure the daily pain. He imagined telling her how he had survived, how a stranger's kindness had saved him, and how every moment away from home had made him treasure her love even more. That vision alone was enough to make him endure the discomfort of healing, to sit through the hours of careful treatment without complaint, and to dream of the moment he could finally rise and walk again. Yet even amidst the warmth of hope, Quang could not silence a persistent worry that gnawed at his heart. Linda, his constant companion in dreams and memories, occupied his thoughts relentlessly. Had she been waiting for him all this time? Or had she been forced to move on, believing that he had been lost forever? The uncertainty was a thorn in his otherwise growing optimism. He remembered the brightness in her eyes, the laughter they had shared, and the quiet moments of connection that had felt timeless. Those memories gave him strength, but they also stirred anxiety. Each day, as he applied the healing herbs and massaged his stiffened muscles, he allowed himself to imagine her waiting at home, hoping he would return. But a shadow of doubt lingered. Had she, too, felt the ache of his absence? Did she still long for the day when he would appear at her doorstep, weary but alive, finally able to explain everything and reclaim the life they had once envisioned together? Despite the uncertainty, Quang made a silent vow to himself each night as he drifted into a fitful sleep. He would not give up. He would endure every pain, every pang of loneliness, every moment of despair, for the sake of the ones he loved. He clung to the vision of his mother's joy and Linda's smile like a lifeline, letting those images pull him through the long hours of recovery. The slow, methodical ritual of healing became more than physical, it became spiritual. Every small improvement in his leg was a triumph, a step closer to home, a promise to himself that he would rise again, whole and determined. The world outside may have seemed cruel, but within the walls of that humble home, Quang discovered that hope, patience, and love, both remembered and imagined, could sustain him in ways that pain never could break. Even as Quang's body slowly healed, his mind remained a restless battlefield of hope and uncertainty. Every day, he imagined the moment he would finally return home, walking through the familiar streets, catching sight of the corner of his mother's house, and hearing her frantic calls as she spotted him after so long. The thought of her joy was a light that pierced through the shadows of his injury and isolation. He could almost feel her arms wrapping around him, the warmth of her embrace seeping into his soul and washing away the lingering fear and pain. That vision was vivid enough to make him close his eyes and savor it for just a few stolen moments each day. But reality always crept back in, harsh and unrelenting. And then there was Linda. Unlike the certainty of his mother's love, the question of Linda's loyalty and patience gnawed at him incessantly. Had she been waiting? Had she believed in his survival, or had despair pushed her to resign herself to a life without him? Quang's heart ached at the thought that she might have moved on, that the love they shared, so sincere and deep, might have been forced to endure the silence of his absence. He replayed their memories constantly, from the simplest touches of their hands to the quiet conversations that had once seemed eternal. Each recollection fueled his resolve, but it also intensified the anxiety that she might not be there when he finally returned. The uncertainty was a shadow he could not shake, no matter how carefully he nurtured hope. Night after night, as he applied the herbal poultice to his leg and watched the bruises slowly fade, Quang allowed himself to imagine the reunion. He pictured Linda standing at the doorway, her expression a mixture of disbelief and relief, her eyes wide with unspoken emotion. The image filled him with both comfort and torment. Comfort, because he could see the love still alive in her gaze; torment, because he could not be certain that the reality would match the vision in his heart. The possibility that she had endured the long months of his disappearance without hope, the possibility that she had turned away from waiting, was a weight he carried silently, pressing on him like an invisible chain. Yet even with this fear, he clung fiercely to the hope that she had never given up, that she, like his mother, had kept a small flame of faith alive, waiting for the day he would come back. In these long hours of reflection, Quang found himself confronting not only the physical challenges of recovery but also the emotional torment of absence. Every ache in his leg, every moment of frustration when mobility seemed impossible, became a meditation on endurance. He understood that returning home would not be instantaneous, that he would have to fight for each step forward with the same determination that had carried him through the night of terror and abandonment. And yet, in the quiet solitude of the villager's home, with the scent of medicinal herbs filling the air and the faint flicker of lamplight dancing across the walls, Quang's resolve crystallized. He would endure all obstacles, physical and emotional alike, for the sake of returning to the people who mattered most. Even as the shadow of doubt lingered, Quang allowed himself to imagine the first words he would speak, the first laughter he would share, and the first tears of relief he would witness. The journey ahead was daunting, but his spirit refused to yield. Every day of healing, every act of patience, every night of imagined reunion brought him closer to the moment he would step through the door of his home, to feel the warmth of his mother's embrace and to see Linda's eyes, he hoped, still filled with the love and faith that had sustained him. In that vision, Quang discovered a profound truth: even in uncertainty, hope could be the strongest force of all, guiding him forward, keeping him alive, and urging him to reclaim the life and the love that awaited him.